on a rural road stretching into the dark, lined with trees on either side. The stars flickered above, and there wasn't much around except the eerie wind rustling through the leaves. A solitary figure, a shadow, moves silently along the side of the road. He's wearing an old green jacket, his face obscured by the dark, and as he gets closer, the moonlight catches his features. What you see isn't like anything you've seen before. A man scarred beyond recognition, his face almost melted, devoid of features that make us familiar. This was Raymond Robinson, or as many came to know him, the Green Man, or Charlie No Face. Raymond was a real person. The story starts in 1919 when Raymond was just 8 years old. It was a sunny day, like any other, and like any young boy, he was full of curiosity and mischief. Raymond and his friends had heard of a bird's nest on the Morado Bridge in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. This wasn't just any bridge. It was part of a local trolley line powered by 11,000 volts of electricity. But for young Raymond, it wasn't the volts that mattered. It was the thrill of adventure, the joy of discovery. The boys dared him to climb up and see if he could spot the nest. With the carefree boldness that only children have, Raymond accepted the challenge. He climbed the bridge, his hands and feet finding their best grip until he reached the top. That's when everything changed. The wires were right there, so close that with a tiny movement, he made contact, and 11,000 volts coursed through his body, throwing him off the bridge. His life was never the same again. He survived, but at a terrible cost. Raymond lost both of his eyes, his nose, and his right arm. His face was disfigured beyond recognition. His skin appeared to have a greenish hue due to the scarring and its appearance under certain lighting, which likely led to his nickname of the Green Man. After the accident, Raymond returned home, but things would never be the same. The world he knew, a world of friends, games, and endless possibilities, had now become something different. Society can be harsh, and for Raymond, people's stares and whispers became his new antagonist. He chose a life of isolation. He lived with his relatives, spending his days indoors, working quietly on crafts like making belts and wallets to keep himself busy. But as the days turned into years, Raymond found a slight sense of solace in something most of us take for granted: walking. There was a part of him that just wanted to be outside again, to breathe in the night air, to hear the rustling of the leaves, and to feel, even for a moment, normal again. But his walks couldn't happen in broad daylight. The harsh light of day meant he was subjected to the cruelty of people's stares, fear, pity, and disgust. So, Raymond started walking at night. It was in the cover of darkness that he felt at peace. Every night, Raymond would leave his home and take long walks along State Route 351 or Route 65, which wound through quiet fields and darkened forests. The local teens soon began to notice him. This lone figure with a disfigured face, always walking late at night, his eyes gone, his skin strangely scarred. Rumors spread like wildfire. He became a ghost story. They said he was radioactive and that his skin glowed with a green tint. They called him Charlie No Face or the Green Man. They whispered that he was an apparition, some lost soul walking the roads forever. Fueled by curiosity and fear, teenagers would drive along those roads at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of this strange figure. They'd flash their headlights, and sometimes they'd see him at the edge of the road, walking calmly in the dark, his face barely illuminated. Some would scream in shock, and others would stop and offer him a ride or a cigarette. And you know what? Raymond would take it. He wasn't an apparition after all. He was a man, a real man who just wanted to be outside. One night, a group of teenagers drove out, determined to see if the stories were true. They laughed nervously, teasing each other about being scared. They drove slowly, headlights cutting through the night, and suddenly, they saw him. Just a figure at first, walking steadily along the shoulder of the road. One of the boys shouted, "There he is!" They slowed the car down and pulled up beside him. They were scared, but also curious. They rolled down the window and offered him a bet. Raymond turned towards them, his face illuminated by the car's interior light. It wasn't glowing, but scarred, burned and melted, missing the features that make us look human. The laughter in the car died down. They were face to face with Charlie No Face. They realized something. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man. A man who nodded, took the beer, and quietly thanked them before continuing his walk. The boys drove away silently, the weight of the encounter pressing on them. The legend of the Green Man wasn't just a story meant to scare, it was real and tragic. For decades, Raymond kept up his nightly walks. He didn't want to scare people. He just wanted some small piece of the world that was taken from him. He became an urban legend, but to those who knew him, he was Raymond, a gentleman who had suffered greatly but still found a way to move forward, even if it was just one quiet step at a time. He passed away in 1985 at the age of 74, but his legend has lived on, a reminder that behind every ghost story, every urban legend, there may be a real person with a tale more heartbreaking and more human than we can imagine. Raymond Robinson, the Green Man, wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a monster. He was a man who had been dealt a tragic hand, yet chose to find his own small way of reclaiming his life. If you found Raymond's story intriguing, check out our other videos on mysterious legends and the real people behind them.